everyone, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today is the first episode in our new segment, Discussion Pod. And my guest today is communications coach, director, producer, conference facilitator, MC, parody songwriter, singer, actor, author, and retired dog whisperer, Rebecca Pierce Murray. Hi, Rebecca.
Hey, Ashwika. It's good to see you.
It's good to see you too. Today, we're just going to be talking about your beginnings as a public speaker in this industry and what you've learned. How did you start working in this industry and what were your motivations or goals?
I guess we could go back to my infancy, really, is where this all started, I believe. When you track back in your life and you see where your passion really started. When I was 2 years old, I have a picture of myself that my mother took, and on the back, this is when, we had actual real pictures, and then parents would write notes and dates and things on the back to remember, that exact moment that they captured. And on the back of that picture, it says she sings, she dances, she plays the harmonica, then claps for herself. And this was before I could even speak. I was just barely 2 years old at this time. So I really believe that my passion for the stage, my being born to perform right out of the womb. And then it was just a matter of, finding my way and honing my skill over the years. So some of that came from having stage opportunities in junior high school and high school to be part of a musical because I love to sing. But then in college, I joined Toastmasters the last couple of years. And there I learned not only about speaking skills, but how speaking dovetails with leadership. And I got to meet some people like the dean of the university because of I became president of our Toastmasters club. And that was sort of a lofty position back then. So I learned at a very young age, in my early 20s, that speaking and learning how to speak and lead can really change things for a person, because it certainly did for me.
Public speaking is not your traditional career path. So as a pioneer in this industry, how did you navigate through this new territory of kind of turning this talent into a livelihood and something you can pursue as a career?
Yeah, that is a really good question. Right out of college, I was headed for the medical field, which probably would not have allowed me to use my speaking skills at all. And fortunately, I was fired from my first big opportunity in medicine when I moved up to Seattle. I was hired at a colon and rectal clinic. Okay. And on my 90th day review, the office manager pulled me into the office and cut me loose, basically fired me. I was absolutely devastated because I was pretty sure that I was going to be a doctor or something like that, from a young age. That was all of my training and at the university. But I realized that there was something else that I was a better fit for. And I always felt a little bit out of place, like there was a ceiling smashing down on me when I was working for doctors. I sort of put in your little box, put in your little place, do these little things. And it would not have allowed me to use my voice. And so what I did right after that, I had an opportunity to prove to myself that all of those skills that I learned in Toastmasters in terms of my speaking and being able to connect with people, I put those to use in sales and did brilliantly in the insurance sales, selling life insurance and other insurance products. So my big takeaway from that period of time was to use my voice to explain how things work to people in a very simple way, to connect with people at networking events, to put my best foot forward by using my voice. And I have used that skill, the ability to connect with people, to network with people, to show up well and say yes to speaking opportunities to put me in front of more people. That's how I've leveraged every single career in my entire life, was through my ability to use my voice. That's it. And that's
That
what I
is pretty wonderful, being able to take advantage of every opportunity and play to your strengths. And I
Mhm.
think it's very important that you were able to identify so early on what your strength was, what you knew you were confident at, and what you knew you were good at in terms of choosing where you wanted to go. So, another question that I had is, as a young public speaker myself and being part of the public speaking community, what is an obstacle or challenge that you never thought you would have to face while in this space that came up during your experiences here?
Well, getting paid for speaking is different than using it in your job. So the first thing is to understand that your skill as a speaker can be used in all different ways in your life, right? In customer service, in sales, in leadership, all these different opportunities that we have to practice the skill of speaking and put ourselves in a position that appears like leadership. For example, you're at any club that you're a member of, any organization that you're a member of, any place that you get hired, you're in a room full of people in a meeting, and knowing how to facilitate a meeting, knowing how to conduct yourself in a meeting, raise your hand, use your voice appropriately, all these things allow you to show up as somebody who's noticed. You're noticed. And so when somebody's thinking of, gee, who could we get to talk to us about whatever it is, XYZ, or who is it in our company that we can give a special task to, that they can bring back to the team and basically give us the salient points of this new technology, whatever that is. They think of you because you're the one who was using your voice in an appropriate and engaging way, a helpful way, in whatever scenario to be noticed. And so those opportunities just tend to grow exponentially the more that you say yes to the next opportunity and to the next opportunity. So if you're serious then about turning speaking into a business to get paid for speaking, that's a whole nother leap. But really, you have to go through that, learning how to leverage it in all of your everyday opportunities to finally get to the point to have enough experience and confidence to step into the public speaking arena, because that's when all of those skills and belief in yourself come together, because you absolutely need it, because it is a very crowded space.
If there was one piece of advice you can give to the next generation of public speakers before they take a full dive into pursuing a career as a speaker, what would it be, and how did you come to learn this lesson?
It is to always think of yourself being on stage, that people are watching you always. They're watching you, they're observing you, and they're studying you. For example, this is a telephone. I mean, we don't always think of it as a telephone because it's also an internet communication device. It also is a banking, a place for us to have any number of apps that allow us to do all kinds of crazy things. But it is also a telephone, a way to communicate. And so I know a lot of you're unique, Ashwika, I will say. You're unique. And I remember the first time you and I spoke on the phone, we were getting ready to speak at a conference together. We were both slated to speak in the same block of one evening. And so I wanted to reach out to you to get to know you better. And then we ended up having such a great conversation that we had another and another, and we ended up helping each other hone our presentations. Remember when we practiced with each other?
Yes.
So I think this ability to reach out voice to voice, and also to have on your outgoing voicemail when someone calls you and all they get is, you have reached 206-537-7777. What if they called you and they said, and part of you just jumped out of the phone, the energetic, I can't wait to speak with you. A person gets a sense of your voice. You know, the voice is the one absolutely original thing. I mean, we're all original people, but there's no other voice in the entire world, has been or will be, exactly like yours, the way your vocal cords, everything. So they get a sense of you in your voicemail. They get a sense of you in your email signature. They get a sense of you from your photo that you choose to put out there and how you are careful about how you show up on social media. All these things people are watching. And so for this next generation, what I would say is, and how you answer the phone, if you do, when you do answer it, how you answer the phone. Rebecca Murray here, how can I help you? Something like that. How you leave a conversation. Absolutely, my pleasure. Those sorts of things. These are all things that set you apart and could be the reason between hiring you and hiring somebody else. These are those little communication opportunities, every single one of them. Pay attention to those. How you greet somebody at a meeting, how you seek out somebody. You know, don't be afraid to use your voice and connect with another human being.
I think one more thing that no one prepares you for is knowing that you're not going to get it right on the first time. A lot
Yes.
of traditional careers, you can jump right into it. You know, you have
Mhm.
stable income, know exactly what path you're going to take, and have essentially financial security and just a little bit of confidence in where you are in life. When it comes to this non-traditional career route, you have to be very persistent and persevering, because you never know what is going to happen and what opportunity may completely change your life. One of my favorite things about public speaking is when we are talking at a summit or a conference and you don't really know what's going on, but that moment when it all comes together right before you get on stage, or right the day before you get on stage, that rush is one of the greatest feelings anyone can get. Like Rebecca was saying, when me and her were talking in a conference, I think a year ago or so, we were still going over things and revising and doing run throughs. And I was honestly very nervous because I wasn't sure if my speech or presentation would come together in time. But when you see people look at you and when you make that eye to eye connection and just be yourself on stage, that's when all of your hard work comes together. And I think that especially is the moment that can distinguish you from being just a regular speaker to someone who takes it on as a career.
Being willing to be vulnerable in front of another person. I was so glad that we decided to practice in front of each other versus, you know, I do a lot of preparation just in front of a camera, but you're right, doing it in front of another person. And I remember you know, we both help each other, and you specifically, you know, I had a video that I was showing at the end, just sort of little curated ideas from presentations that I'd done and recorded that I was sharing. And what we realized was my presentation was just a little bit too long and I had to cut something. And so I asked you, you know, I think I should cut one of these examples. Which one should I cut? And you immediately knew which one to cut. I cut it. It was the perfect advice for that presentation. It made it so much better. And so, you know, we often were, I think that's the hard part, you know, putting the presentation together. Okay, that's hard enough. But then knowing what to cut and maybe what we didn't think of, what to pull in, that often takes another brain. And so to be willing to rehearse in front of another person to get their feedback and really think like, oh my gosh, that's so helpful. And sometimes feedback is hard to hear. But if you have the mindset of it's I think of it as a film director with an actor. a director and actor are after the same thing, an amazing performance for a movie. And so if the director is telling the actor something very specific, that the actor knows it's for their benefit. So it's best to have ears open, mind open, take it in. And in terms of being a speaker, that same thing. And then you see if it resonates with you also. That's the other litmus test. Like maybe it doesn't quite make sense to you, then you don't need to take it, but at least hear it.
When I first started out public speaking, I refused to let my parents or my sister come in the room, and I refused to let any of them watch me speak, because I think when you have a relationship, a friendship, or even just a loved one watching you, it's a whole other different type of pressure on you versus speaking in front of people who have
Totally.
never seen you before, or someone who knows you as just another person and doesn't have that tie to you.
Yeah.
And my alternate solution for that in terms of getting feedback was talking to myself in the mirror while recording myself and going back and critiquing myself as if I was a external person. I soon realized that can only get you so far, but learning to trust your instincts as well as other people's and learning to kind of take down your walls is extremely important and will ultimately increase the quality of any speech you have. I have to give a big thanks to Rebecca because she was my guide and kind of my mentor in the first like professional and external public speaking project that I did. She helped me get up with lighting and kind of know how to connect to a computer, because this was in the midst of the COVID pandemic and we were right at home.
Yeah.
But just knowing, like Rebecca said, to listen to the other person, be open to feedback can drastically change, but change it for the better.
I do agree with you that family or those close to you, that is the toughest audience, and the one that I think the average person has the most apprehension about. The first hurdle that a lot of people have trouble getting over is doing what you just said, recording it and watching yourself all the way through and not beating yourself up, but looking for those opportunities to pat yourself on the back and to say aloud, this is what I do. I don't know about you, but I'm one of these rare people. I really do love watching myself. And so I've always said, be your own best audience and you'll always be entertained and appreciated, right? So I am my best audience, and I have been since I was 2, I think. But I will say things, I will make note of the things I want to change, of course. And there always are, I'll make notes, little things like, okay, don't do that, do this different next time. But I'm also the first one to say to myself, ha 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 ha, I'd laugh at myself. That was brilliant. You're creative. I will say these things out loud to myself as I'm watching back the recording to reinforce all that I did well. And I think the hang up that a lot of people have and why they're afraid is like, oh, I know I didn't do what I wanted to do. I could feel it while I was giving the speech in the first place. And I don't want to put myself down. I'm afraid that's all I will do when I see myself is think how messed up my presentation was. And so get over it, because there 3 things. Number 1, it's never as bad as you think. It's never as bad as you think. You're always going to find things that you did well, and pat yourself back. Take a moment to pat yourself on the back for just watching yourself back, because that, again, first hurdle, and then start to appreciate yourself. Can you imagine training a dog? This is, I'm a retired dog whisperer. I trained dogs for 12 years. If we train dogs like that, no, bad dog, bad. It's impossible to train a dog with criticizing. It's impossible to get better with yourself is all if all you do is critique yourself. It is impossible.
A lot of the things also when we look back at ourselves and critique ourselves for is things just make our communication human. I know many times
Yes.
I've rewatched some of my videos and like I don't like the sound of my voice or the way I tilt my head, but just understanding that's the way you communicate, and that's also what makes that connection, that this is not a person just speaking to other figures of life, but someone who's speaking to another person in a conversational way is extremely important. Knowing that the little quirks that you do are what makes your way of communicating unique.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The originality thing too, I think is something that people get hung up on. Like, what would I have to say that's original? What would I have to say that hasn't been said before? And it's exactly what you just said. The way that you do it is different. The way that you think about it is likely different. And even if you say the exact same thing that someone else has said in some point in time, of course you know that's going to happen, because the current human brain, the way it works, has been around for 300,000 years. So of course there's going to be many other brains and consciousnesses, is that how I'd say it? Consciousnesses that have been on the human planet. Don't worry about being original. Like you said, just be yourself. And that is what makes it original, period.
To wrap up our session today, I wanted to ask you, out of everything we've talked about and everything you've learned, what is one takeaway that you'd like them to leave with when they finish watching this video?
Well, we didn't dive into the, becoming a paid public speaker. I guess maybe that would be another episode that we could do together at some time, because that's sort of a whole different path that you go on once you're at the point of having your personal and people skills in play. So that is the biggest takeaway that I can give to any person, any young person, regardless of the career that you are pursuing, is to say yes to opportunities that put you in front of other people, and always know that people are watching and listening about how you present yourself. If you're serious about getting on stage and becoming a paid professional speaker one day, then you need to be cautious and curate how you show up in the world, and always put your best foot and voice forward.
You can never go wrong following what you love, and it'll ultimately lead to success. Thank you so much, Rebecca, for coming on to our first episode of Discussion Pod. It was great having you, and I know the viewers loved listening to you talk today.
Thank you so much. It's been my absolute pleasure, Ashwika. Great job.
All right, everybody, that concludes our first episode. Keep following and stay tuned for the next episode of Discussion Pod. Bye.